If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. You are listening to the Maura Murray series, our longest running series here on Mindshock. This is episode 84, Sarah Alfieri. And in this case, from James Renner to online speculation to just various comments of all kinds, many think Kate Markopoulos and what she might or might not know is central to the Maura Murray case and finding out what happens. But in this episode, I'm going to postulate that perhaps Sarah Alfieri is the key to solving the Maura Murray mystery. Again, just a theory. Again, this is Mindshock. I do not claim anything is true or untrue. I am not claiming any theories are true or untrue. This is Mindshock, where the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. And we might not even be sure about that. I am, of course, your host, Bruce McGuire. And in typical Mindshock fashion, we will dissect all the theories revolving Sarah Alfieri and individuals connected to Sarah Alfieri who might be connected to shady individuals in Haverhill, New Hampshire. As always, if you enjoy the Mindshock podcast, find it interesting and informative, want to help Mindshock get more mind-shocking content out there, and keep up awareness in unsolved cold cases, missing persons cases, wrongful convictions, and more, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also become a member right here on YouTube for access to members-only streams and chats. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications to get updates on the latest Mindshock episodes in various ongoing series in true crime, the paranormal, and anything and everything in between, with logic and reason at the forefront. Something sorely missing from the mainstream these days. Like and share the podcast, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast requests. You can also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. So, of course, Kate Markopoulos is very central to the UMass storyline. Now, she, of course, fellow track team member, possible connections to other individuals, spent some of the last known nights with Maura Murray, but so did Sarah Alfieri, who's not on the track team, but she did work with Maura Murray at the art gallery, allegedly on the Sunday before Maura Murray officially disappeared. Some people actually believe that something might have happened to Maura that Sunday. Of course, there is the problematic phone call that Sunday night. However, we can't assume anything is true or untrue, of course. So even if Fred Murray believes he spoke to Maura Murray at a particular time, maybe he did, but maybe someone else was in the presence of Maura Murray during that phone call and something else was going on at that time. So let's, and again, there is also the problem of the phone. So she allegedly left her phone at Sarah Alfieri's dorm room. Did she get it? That's the Saturday night. Did she get it back Sunday? Because if she didn't, there's a lot of problems. Or maybe she sort of did. Again, if she's with another individual or individuals, they have possession of her phone and they do allow her to speak to her father for a period of time. Now, by allow, I don't maybe Maura didn't even know she was in danger at the time. It's not necessarily, I'm not alleging it was a coerced phone call. I am just postulating that perhaps there was something else going on in the presence of individuals she believed did not want to do her harm when they did. Again, I am not alleging Sarah Alfieri is one of these individuals, but she might be connected to some of these individuals. So let's go over a post here from Repulsive Wallaby, one of the best posters on the Maura Murray case, one of the best critical thinkers. There's not a lot of them out there in the Maura Murray online community. The Dunning-Kruger crowd, the steers, the obfuscators, the trolls, they're out in full force. There's not that many solid users out there, but Repulsive Wallaby is kind of leading the charge in keeping this case alive and moving forward by asking the logical questions and by making some of these very astute connections that cannot be explained. Here's an interesting post from a few weeks ago. there was a mutual top 8 female friend of Concrete Guy and his brother on their old MySpace pages. She was a UMass student at the same time as Maura, who resided in the same apartment in 2004 as Sarah Alfieri's brother. Coincidence, or does Sarah know something? Okay, so if you haven't checked out the previous episode, I believe this was the first podcast or documentary of any kind that has attempted to link the UMass area individuals to the Haverhill area individuals. The auto gang, the individuals that seem to be involved in auto repair shops, salvage shops, towing, and their circles. And there are some intersections of those circles that have never before been discussed until now, until this previous episode, and in various threads online. So if you haven't checked out the previous episode, I mean, it's required to understand what's going on here, because I'm not going to be going over all of that again. But, yeah, so apparently super briefly, Maura might have been staying in the Phillips Street area, the mysterious Phillips Street address, and there is also this other address of Sarah Alfieri's brother. Now, there's also another UMass track teammate of Maura's who allegedly also stayed at the Phillips Street address. And now there's also this female friend of Concrete Guy and his brother. So, what does everybody make of this? And this friend apparently lived with Sarah Alfieri's brother, or at least they had the same apartment, whatever that means, in the records. Yeah, I mean, this is mind-shocking stuff. I mean, these are mind-shocking connections. I mean, again, let's look at the population of UMass. Okay, so straight from the UMassP.edu Institutional Research Fact Sheet, 2004-2005. So, the headcount enrollment, fall 2004, from Amherst, 18,139 undergrads, 5,680 grads, and 827 continuing education students, for a total of 24,646 people. So they don't call it ZooMass for nothing. So 24,646 students. Now, obviously, that wouldn't be exact as of February, but I mean, we're talking within months. So, regardless, over 24,000 students. And Sarah Alfieri's brother just happens to have the same apartment as Concrete Guy up in this little hamlet in the middle of nowhere in Haverhill, New Hampshire. That's kind of weird. Now, the other thing that's kind of weird is, of course, Sarah Alfieri's behavior has been quite suspicious the entire time. Some people don't find it suspicious, but again, obviously to each their own. In every other missing persons case ever, you have just countless interviews and media appearances by people closest to the missing person. Co-workers, etc. You don't, obviously, it's silent UMass when it comes to the Maura Murray case. Okay, so let's go through the comments here. So there is also a chance Sarah's older brother roomed with this girl. Maybe they were in a relationship or friends. There were not too many previous residents at this address. So this is a Nashon, New Hampshire address. We know Concrete Guy was somewhat close to this girl, considering him and his brothers were all top 8 mutual friends with her. MySpace designed the top 8 friends to be customizable, or it automatically made your top 8 the people you most associated with on the MySpace platform. I wonder if Sarah and her brother knew Concrete Guy. I wonder if Sarah or her brother even knew this girl. Seems like there was definitely a chance. I have always wondered if Sarah or someone Sarah knew introduced Maura to someone who may have harmed her. Some responses here. I think it's an excellent point. Maura could have been introduced to someone, possibly just an acquaintance who is able to stay off the radar because they aren't directly connected. Maybe no real communication with this person, but possibly he was at the same UMass social get-togethers and he took a liking to her. To this day, I feel strongly that Woodsville was familiar to the person who harmed Maura, and she was harmed somewhere between Amherst and wherever she was going, if she was going somewhere on February 9th. More posts here. So, well, Sarah did go to law school, passed the bar, and never practiced one day as a lawyer. Now, again, that could be innocent as well. I mean, I'm sure there's a certain percentage of people who do that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Claims to have slept through the Saturday night dorm party, the one where Maura went off with Sarah's cousin, according to Kate, then came back in a rush, grabbed her dad's keys from Sarah's room, and fled like a maniac to Fred's motel, got in an accident, and then no one ever saw her again. That being said, allegedly Kate talked to Fred, but said that Sarah never did. And we'll get to what Fred said about that later. Oh, and Maura filed a sexual report with campus police after the party. What? This is the first I'm hearing about this. Hold on a second. Hold on a second here. Is there any evidence of that? Apparently there's no source cited here. We will go through the responses here to see if there is a source cited. I'm thinking that, yeah, it probably had to do with her leaving, add in the non-existent car shopping, the family home having a lien put on it, and Kathleen and Tim getting into God knows what trouble. She was probably stressed. Plus, I don't know, I think Maura and Billy had an open relationship, in my opinion, but he was still being a douche. Credit card drama, probably some sort of disorder, be it eating, drug, depression. I'd want to get the expletive out, too. Again, those are all alleged and not proven. It's been rumored that grooming occurs at West Point, spills over to the back pages and such. Maybe Billy knew she was, in quotations, working, and that's why he got there so fast with the McDonald's. I doubt Cecil Smith held 2 guns to his temples the day the Justice Department visited him because of boyfriend back home troubles. What? I think she probably got followed from White River Junction, or maybe did get followed from Amherst. But we all know a local got her. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, could it be more obvious? Maybe they were a UMass student distant cousin from Haverhill and the police academy. That isn't an impossibility. Or Claude Moulton grabbed her and she escaped the A-frame, ran down Brill, got spotted by Forcier before Marsh and Moulton tracked her down. Then Mitch, the expletive, snowplowed Brill Road. Allegedly. There's plenty of dirtbags to go around. No footprints. Huh. So, a few people asked for sources on the sexual assault report by Maura Murray, and the response here from Ginger Modding is, Chuck West, have fun. Does that mean Chuck West mentioned this and it's never been released? Is this one of the little details he might have told Aaron Larkin and possibly Julie Murray that they did not release? Or is this just all made-up nonsense online? Again, I do not claim to know. Would be interesting to see Karen Mayott's police report that for some reason is kept under lock and key like some Area 51 report. Really weird. So someone asked, when did she file the sexual assault report with campus police? Saturday night or Sunday? The Ginger Modding responded, Sunday or Monday prior to leaving Amherst. I don't recall. More responses here. Get on the FOIA and offline already. Most likely it's been incinerated. Maybe just ask Carl or Sarah or Fred or Julie or Billy or Kate or Mr. Cold Case. Per DM unit himself, Chuck West. No kidding, that's just a waste of time. You actually give an expletive. Strelzin writing FU affidavits in DUI walkaway cases is his favorite. I wonder if he just sucks at his job and can't control his underlings, or if he's like, Cecil, if you expletive my vacation home up for me, I'll have your head, or if he's a Captain Save-A-Ho, I'm gonna clean this up. Wait, how many millions? Operation Fudge. Maybe people will do us as solid and keep secrets. Loose lips sink ships. Tell him that I'll tide him over for a few years, just as long as no one disappears or decomposing off 93. Expletive, will someone catch these expletives? The white people will not want to come ski, then what do we have? Granite. That's my best off-the-cuff Charles and impression. Any good? Question mark. I can handle constructive criticism. Huh. I mean, some interesting points here, an interesting conversation continuing here. Trying to interpret this is causing me a headache, but anyway, if there was a cover-up, that would have occurred at UMass. I'm sure New Hampshire would love for the blame to be put on UMass rather than their state. Ginger Modding responds here, no, you missed my point. The plot was hatched at UMass. It went south in Woodsville. Another post here, if you were talking about students at UMass when Maura was there, there's the female close relative of one of the Haverhill cops who searched through the Saturn II. That is a direct connection between UMass and Haverhill. Funny, not mentioned at all. Then there's a bunch of arguing like usual online. But let's get to some more mind-shocking stuff here. This was posted by the one and only Falk. Master obfuscator, troll, and narrative steerer, self-admitted. I mean, I don't know if this guy has a mental disability or he's just playing stupid. It's really hard to tell with this guy. But he made some interesting connections here. Again, nothing he says can be trusted. We're just going to examine the information here, some of which, if it can be verified in other sources, we can attempt to discuss here. So, some mind-shocking information here, again, if true. I am not claiming any of this is true. No one should ever take anything Falk claims as true in any way. Did Sarah avoid Bill Rausch when he went to see Maura's dorm? This is very interesting, I think. So, back when I used to chat with Bill Rausch about the case, he had mentioned that when he went into Maura's room, McDonald had gone into the room with him, escorted by UMPD, and that they both thought the room looked packed. I mentioned on a thread recently that Bob McDonald had accompanied Bill, and in response, I was asked for my source. I explained that Bill had been my source. I suggested that people can consider contacting McDonald directly to verify if he had accompanied Bill in the room. Okay. So here is Bob McDonald's response confirming that he had accompanied Bill in the room. Quote, my wife Christine and I heard from Bill about Maura's disappearance on Friday, February 13, 2004, and drove up to the New Hampshire-Vermont border that night. We checked into the Wells River, Vermont hotel. It was President's Day weekend. Christine had to return on Tuesday, February 17th, and drove home that day in our car. I was able to stay through Thursday, February 19th. It was on that day that Bill and I drove to UMass Amherst and met with campus police late in the afternoon. They offered to, I'm sorry, I have to repeat this again, because it's totally normal. For the boyfriend, possible ex-boyfriend at this time, of an alleged DUI walkaway to just invite his former, not even current, college professor and his spouse on these cross-country trips. So his own parents are going to do a cross-country trip over a DUI walkaway. What's the average time somebody returns to a vehicle after a DUI walkaway? They sleep it off for a night and then they come back the next day, or what? At worst, the day after? I mean, how many people get their former college professor and his spouse to drive, who knows how many miles to look... I don't know. Does anybody else find that weird? I know Maxwell didn't find that weird, but can anybody name a single other instance where this occurred? That's the thing for me. We got to utilize controls. Because if it's very often, if every single listener out there knows at least one or two people, personally, who have been a boyfriend or ex-boyfriend who's gotten their former college professor to come out and help search after an alleged DUI walkaway. I don't know. If it happens all the time and everybody knows at least one or two people that has done this, then okay, then it's not that strange. But if it's never happened in the history of colleges and DUIs, that's strange. All right, continuing on here. It was on that day Bill and I drove to UMass Amherst and met with campus police late in the afternoon. They offered to... I still can't... are there people that don't find this strange? Oh, man. Okay. They offered to take us into Maura's dorm room, but Christine had rented me a car to drive home in from Avis, which had a counter in a Springfield hotel. It closed at 6 p.m., so Bill first drove me to Springfield. And Springfield is also supposedly one of these unidentified numbers that may or may not have been a friend or acquaintance of Maura's and or Bill's. And or possibly other individuals connected to this case, and possibly Sara Alfieri connections. I picked up the rental car and followed Bill back to UMass. We went back to campus police and they took us to Maura's room. Afterwards, I said goodbye to Bill, who was going to try to see a UMass friend of Maura's named Sarah. I'm not sure if he was able to link up with her, but that evening he returned to Wells River and drove the rental car back home. I taught class the next day, Friday, February 20th. And if he's that close with Bill, I mean, couldn't he have stayed a little longer to help? I mean, what's going on if they're that close? Okay, so... Alright, so apparently this is on the Black Saturn subreddit. Huh. So this is allegedly the response this user Golden Mom 4GR got from McDonald. Interesting. Allegedly. Again, I don't see any actual confirmation this is from the Bob McDonald, but okay. So continuing folks, post here. I went to the same law school as Sarah Alfieri, and even sat with her and others in the same booth at a popular law school hangout bar probably around 2010, which was 3 years before I had heard about the case. Subsequently, Bill and I discussed the fact that I had met Sarah Alfieri, and he never had. Which was funny in a sense, because I hadn't even heard of the case when I met Sarah. So it seems his attempt to meet up with Sarah after looking at the dorm was unsuccessful. It sounds, without more information, like she may have blown him off. If I remember correctly, Sarah has only spoken with Fred once, and it was on the phone. They didn't meet. And she had never communicated with Julie Murray or Aaron Larkin in any way. She has ignored them. What do you make of this? Very interesting, I think. So in Fred Murray's interview with Aaron Larkin, Fred stated, and incidentally, I only talked to Sarah once. I called her, she told me I was asleep the whole time, Mr. Murray, and I don't have any idea what happened, you know. I mean, other people allege she did tell him some kind of details that he didn't want public regarding Maura and possibly Sarah's cousin, or another individual, if it wasn't Sarah's cousin. And he doesn't want that out there, so he doesn't want to mention what that was. Okay, wow. Wow. Now, it's time for a couple of little asides, because although it is suspicious, I mean, it's a little bit suspicious how Sarah Alfieri kind of just disappeared. Lack of transparency per se. The first response here to folk, Sarah changed schools at some point after Maura's disappearance, and sometime around the Oxygen TV series, she removed UMass College entirely from her LinkedIn page as part of her experience. Always been very murky and unclear when and where she gave Maura's cell back to her. If she did. Okay. So let's get into one of the few interviews with Sarah Alfieri. And that was 17 Magazine. Now, actually, before we reference that, from Renner's blog, Sarah Alfieri has gone to ground, as they say, living practically off the grid with a couple in Greater Boston. Sarah, as you recall, was at the late-night party with Maura Murray and Kate Markopoulos the weekend before Maura disappeared, the same night she got into the accident in Hadley. Sarah was once interviewed by a magazine and seemed to imply she had more info, but didn't want to get Maura in trouble. There's been much speculation as to what she meant by this, and so I visited her today to see if she could clear it up. The conversation was over, though, as soon as I introduced myself. This young woman was scared. Not by me, I look like Fox Mulder's little brother, for God's sake, but by being found. She is hiding, and I have no idea why. How did you find me? She asked. When asked directly about what happened the night of the party and who else was there, all she said was, "I can't talk about that," and closed the door. I'd give just about anything to know what happened that night. I really think the seeds for Maura's disappearance were planted that evening. And it's hard to argue those words from James Renner. A response to that post, and we're going back 5 years ago on Reddit now, it appears that any info that Sarah kept to herself, if true, was not to get Maura in trouble, but maybe someone else. Maura's odd behavior about wanting to get her dad's car back as soon as possible, I think, was an excuse. It seems whoever the unknown guy was that walked out of the dorm with Kate and Maura seemed maybe creepy to Maura, like he was coming on to her or something. So instead of going to her dorm room and having this guy follow her, she made up the excuse to get the car back to her dad when she really didn't have to until the next Monday. Maybe her hitting the guardrail was her stressing about this guy following her from the party. She needs the safety of her dad, in my opinion, that night, and seemed very uncomfortable. Seems something nefarious had already started that night and continued to haunt her right up to Haverhill, New Hampshire. Any women out there think this is possible? If you were creeped out by a guy somewhere at a party, wouldn't you make up a lie to have to go somewhere else to avoid this person? Maybe this person showed up back at her dorm room to see Maura on Sunday or Monday also. A poster here also 5 years ago, there was a rumor that Maura was raped at the dorm party, but they've never been able to get the full story from Kate Markopoulos or Sara Alfieri. I have a hard time believing this, as I feel it gets blown up if there was an indication of truth, but it would be nice to know from whom it originated. John Smith responded here, I have heard this rumor as well, even from the family. I guess it's possible if the person that did something like this is being protected by their friends or relatives, it is possible. So apparently this Rick Graves might have told this to James Renner. Another interesting post, it makes me wonder if they dropped in someplace else before the dorm party. Why have a dorm party when you can crash a house party? And again, was this other party at the Phillips Street address, in that frat neighborhood? John Smith also posted this, one more reason to keep her quiet before she went to the authorities. Another post here, maybe the guy from the party didn't take her rejecting him so well and kept trying to get with her. He could have started an obsession with him, and she no longer felt safe, so drove away, so maybe he would think she no longer went to school at UMass. She maybe would be gone for a week, or just so he would believe it and not keep checking her dorm. Maybe he followed her and purposely got into an accident with her and drove off, and then she saw his car and started running, but he came back to snatch her. It would make sense if it was the other girl's cousin because she doesn't want to do something to a family member. I wish there were more videos we could see of Maura's ride, like maybe camera recordings from gas stations or like someone's yard camera just to see the roads, like if someone was following her or if there was anyone smoking in the car or anything. And again, there's no real evidence she ever left the UMass area. Any footage, if it exists, has never been released. Also, supposedly, people have stated her dorm room didn't really even look like it was lived in. So if Maura wasn't even staying in her dorm for a period of time, weeks or maybe even months, I mean, what does that mean to the case? So in the notes of Vanessa Grigoriadis in the June 2004 17 interview with Kate Markopoulos, Kate stated, Maura didn't really have any other friends except for me and Sarah. So, to the people that say that Maura didn't have any friends at all, or that her and Kate and Sarah weren't very close, in the interview notes from Vanessa Grigoriadis, June 2004, just a few months later, she's clearly stating here, this quote, that Maura didn't have any other friends except for me and Sarah. So Kate Markopoulos is stating that her and Sarah were her only friends, or at least to her knowledge. Also, Billy Rausch, Kate Markopoulos, and Sara Alfieri did give testimony at the grand jury, which is curious. So let's go back here again to this Sarah avoiding Bill Rausch post by Folk. A response here by Golden Mom 4G Oregon. Do we know when Sarah apparently told Helena Murray that she would only talk to Fred and only tell the story one time? There's the March 2nd Boston Globe article where it says, meanwhile, one UMass friend has seemingly withheld information from police saying she didn't want to get Maura in trouble. And again, do we know if that was Sarah or Kate Markopoulos? Another post here, random thoughts. This whole dorm party story has always been very hinky. But Fred Murray, who Sarah Alfieri did talk to, has maintained UMass has nothing to do with the disappearance. Again, how would he know? Maybe it really doesn't. Anything is possible. Assuming Sarah Alfieri was already intent on trying to go to law school, perhaps some reluctance to get involved in this as affecting her chances seems reasonable. Maybe not admirable, especially if she knows anything, but not all that unusual. But again, pick your scenario and plug this Sarah Alfieri story in. No matter what actually happened to Maura Murray, Sarah Alfieri still behaves this way in whatever scenario ends up being the truth. Sarah Alfieri wasn't sleeping when the gathering began in her room, so she should have some statement about who was there and what happened. I find it hard to believe that Sarah Alfieri merely wants to cover up that she maybe became pass-out drunk, has a memory hole, and lies and says she was sleeping. It is too ridiculous and invites speculation that there's something she isn't saying. And by doing that, Sarah Alfieri and Fred Murray both know she's wasting a lot of well-intentioned people's time who have been trying to help Fred Murray and his family. Maybe Sarah Alfieri is embarrassed about something she did at the party, and that's where sleeping comes from. I'll assume for the time being Sarah Alfieri didn't tell Fred Murray that. But if Fred Murray genuinely knows people are wasting their time pursuing the dorm party on his family's behalf, he isn't doing Maura Murray any good. And I come back to Kate Markopoulos was also there. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Again, all I can really compare it to is pretty much any other missing persons case, where friends, family, co-workers, anyone and everybody that knew the missing person is talking about it far and wide on every single piece of media. Every case except the Maura Murray case. So, another excerpt here. Obviously, Folk, I mean, he's either playing stupid, he doesn't know the definition of words like facts, evidence, assumption. He just keeps stating here that he believes that UMass may have nothing to do with Maura's disappearance, strongly believe that Maura traveled alone. I mean, just all hallucinations based on no actual verifiable evidence, of course. And then hallucinating and assuming that it is highly likely that no one from UMass was directly involved in her disappearance, and where he's hallucinating that from, if he's not generally playing stupid, if he does have some kind of mental disability, you would think there'd still be some kind of a basis there for these hallucinations, but again, this is Folk we're talking about, so no basis here. But he does give an excerpt here from, again, Fred's interview with Aaron Larkin. Kate and Sarah both told me that they do not know why Maura left. I don't know what to make of Sarah. Sarah had 3 friends. Her cousin was there, some guy who brought 2 friends at the dorm party. And I could get nothing from Sarah. Sarah told me that she was asleep the whole time, but there were 3 guys there. And I want to know who they were and what about them, and what their possible participation was. It's also curious, he's using the word participation as if there was a... Does anybody say participate in a party? Nobody says that. A participation would be as part of some kind of an act of any kind, harmful or not. Of course, that was Saturday night, and Maura's gone on Monday. But did any of these birds have anything to do with anything? And I don't know who they are, and I want to talk to them because I want to find out more about that party night Saturday night. And incidentally, I only talked to Sarah once. I called her. She told me she told me I was asleep the whole time, Mr. Murray, and I don't have any idea what happened. So obviously, if she knows, she's not telling me. That story sounds unlikely that she's asleep the whole time. Anyway, that's my only interaction with Sarah. But her relative and his two buddies are guys I want to talk to. So here's the thing. How does Fred Murray know that UMass has nothing to do with Maura's disappearance if he doesn't even know what's going on with these three guys? And why does he want to talk to these three guys if he's that convinced that nothing happened? Again, it's not making a lot of sense. Aaron Larkin asks, she didn't tell you who they were? Fred responds, no. I think it was Kate who told me. Kate Markopoulos, who told the three guys were Sarah's cousin. One was Sarah's cousin, and that's a story on that as I understand it. Another post here by someone else. Sarah has been described as a bit closed off and uncommunicative by those who've met her. Young people drinking a lot at a get-together, it's not uncommon for one to fall asleep. If Maura, who seemed a private person, had just taken off for a few days, she wouldn't be best pleased about people rummaging around her room. Also, maybe Sarah didn't feel the need to meet up with a casual friend's on-again, off-again boyfriend. If it was me in her position, I'd definitely sit down with Maura's family, though. And again, do we have anybody who knew Sarah before and after Maura's disappearance? Because did she become closed off and uncommunicative after Maura's disappearance, or was she always like that? Again, these are controls and baselines we would need to know before making any kind of conclusions of any kind. Ginger Modding posted this. How human of Sarah to dodge Billy, whether they were broken up or not, when he's trying to figure out what happened to Maura, who's been missing for days, and just so happened to go off with your cousin the night she was assaulted. Real classy. Interesting. Again, supposedly nothing's been posted regarding evidence of a sexual assault report by Maura. Whether it's true or not, again, I am not alleging it is true or untrue. These are details that are being discussed online. Golden Mom 4G responded here. Julie Murray has recently indicated that she would like to know more from Sarah. I do think Sarah has withheld something. Is it the key to solving the disappearance? I hope not, but anything would be crucial. I personally don't think the Saturday party is the key because we know Maura was upset on Thursday night, if not before. I mean, do we really know that? Again, we don't really know anything, or the whys of anything. These are just second or third hand reports. Another poster, Scrappy Doo fan, posted this. Just to guess a reason for Sarah's actions. Maybe she saw early on that friends of hers were accused of doing something bad to Maura. These are Sarah's friends, so she's really offended by these accusations, so she lawyers up and is cagey with investigators. It's not an uncommon response to investigators to be offended by the accusation. Also, I've always thought that the theory that some had that the police never figured out who these boys were because Sarah and Kate refused to name them absolutely absurd. One, the party is just too saucy of a detail that of course you would investigate it. Two, they know two of the girls that were for sure at this party. What are these people, members of a gang or something? Of course, between the two of them, they can get the names of the other people at the party. I mean, those are all assumptions as well. I mean, we really don't know. And even if they did get the names, they talked to them one time. If there's a whole, if there's orders from above, again, the FBI visited UMass for inexplicable reasons. If there's a major gag order, faculty, students, it's silent UMass for a reason. You don't see this in any other missing persons case ever. So we really don't know. We're not going to assume competency on the part of law enforcement either. So all mind-shocking revelations here, if true. Again, I am not alleging any of it is true, but if it is, I mean, there's quite a bit here with connections to the Haverhill area as well. Is Sarah Alfieri truly the key to this case, or was she really just so put off? Again, we don't know what type of person she is, her personality. I mean, did this kind of put her over the edge a little bit, like she couldn't handle the situation? Is she really just like a nice, timid person that kind of cracked when this major case happened? and her cousin's there, may or may not. I mean, we really don't know. Do we know anything about her cousin? Again, I'm not alleging anything is true, untrue, or there wasn't any actual crime committed. But if there was, theoretically, again, I'm not claiming this is true, but theoretically, if her cousin is a violent individual, and she knows that he might have done something to Maura, and he threatened her as well, how would she react? Particularly if she knows he has a history of violence and she's scared for herself. In these situations, I mean, yes, some people might say, oh yeah, they would definitely go to the police. But again, look at all of history. How often do people not go to the police when they're threatened by friends or family members? I mean, yeah, sure, sometimes they do. I mean, I don't know what percentages. It's impossible to have that data because of all the people that don't go to the police. But out of crimes that end up occurring, assaults or murders, look how often there was a history of threats and a history of violence. So in how many cases that don't culminate in massive assaults and murder, where there's also threats of violence that were just never reported. So, again, a lot more questions and answers in this baffling case like no other. I mean, it's just, there is no other case like this. I mean, that's all I could say about it at this point. I mean, you gotta look at all of these connections, factor in the statistics of coincidences, because the coincidence theorists obviously love this case. I mean, just look how many coincidence theorist goofs are just like moths to a flame with the Maura Murray case. I mean, they're just giddy with excitement every time they can write off yet another coincidence in this stratospheric Tower of Babel coincidence stack unlike any other case. So I hope you guys found another edition of Mindshock True Crime interesting and informative. Unfortunately, this is not the end of the Maura Murray series. I mean, this case just really needs to get solved, and as long as there's awareness for it, there's a chance it will be. Whether that means Maura is alive and well, or if she was harmed by whom. And the truth is not afraid of investigation. As always, if you enjoy the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal, help support Mindshock. Check the link in the description. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like and share, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. This is Bruce McGuire, signing off. Catch you guys next time.